So the objective of the data set is to answer some very basic questions, and for those questions, I think there is you can take the data set in many directions, but I think what we want to do is we've got 2 or 3 things that we want to focus on specifically. One is, if I look at the state bank data set, I've got a couple of pieces there. Then if I look at the PSLM data set, I've got some pieces of information there. Then I've got mobile banking statistics that we've captured from the public domain. But I think there are 2 or 3 key questions. I think the first question is, what does the population of banking customers look like in terms of their profile, in terms of their income profile and their age group? And then we've got some data from state banks. We want to reconcile that. A lot of this work that we will do is what I would call non-calibrated, in the sense that you would need to do a couple of iterations if you were doing this in the real world. But for our exercise, given the fact that we have an exam tomorrow, we're going to make a number of convenient assumptions. So if the numbers don't reconcile, if there's too much of a difference, as long as we're all working off the same set of assumptions and we follow the same process, then we should be okay. The first thing that we have is a list of mobile banking users by banks. And I think one of the updates that I wanted to give you was that for the purpose of the exam and for the purpose of the assessment, you have a lot of data here. You don't have to work with all of it, and you don't have to calculate the results for all of them. What you need to do is focus on, or limit yourself to, let's say, the top 6 banks on this list. So the top 6 have a rating of about, I think the lowest rating is of JS Bank, which is at 5. Everybody else is about 4. What that basically means that the focus of your analysis. So for the purpose of the exam, I will limit myself to asking questions for the top 6. I will not extend my analysis to everybody else on the list. So this is one. I think the second update is that the sequence that you need to use for calculating the income and the age distribution is a little involved. So अब तक जो आपने डेटा पे काम किया था, उस डेटा के अंदर आपके पास you had data that came from multiple sources, and generally you had a key. For this specific test and for this specific exam, I think the challenge is that there is no key. So you'll have to figure out how to make it work. And what I've done is I've given you a model that you can use to calculate the results and to do the analysis that you need to perform, so that you can get a sense of what your answers look like. You have 2 choices. One choice is that you can start with the PSLM dataset and the income and age distribution. I think the other choice is to start with mobile banking users. So starting off with the mobile banking users, given the fact that we've already limited ourselves to the first 6, is the smarter approach, it's a simpler approach, and it's the easier approach. So that's what we're going to do. The distribution of income by banks is concerned, that's the same. And we are going to use that distribution and apply that distribution as is to the number of mobile banking users available for a bank. And ye ek sequence hai. So I'm going to follow that sequence. But what that sequence basically means is that as far as we are concerned, we have a given data set. So for example, if I take the instance of UBL, in UBL's case, the number of mobile banking users is given. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this part. This is the segment share for a given income bracket. And then within this segment share, what I'm going to use is I've got 2 separate sets of income. So these are updates that have happened over the last 24 hours. I'm going to use only the new, only this piece. So हम ये old income bracket को अभी for the time being इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे. Now, in terms of question variations, one possibility is it's very important that you build your model in a generalized fashion. You don't hard code these values. Instead of question variation, what's going to happen is that I may change this and give you a new income distribution. I may keep it as is, or I may change the segment share information that you see. फिर इसके बाद the next step is कि once you have this information as a given, then your next step is to apply this. So what you need to do is you need to take this, for example, ये तो हमें पता है कि पहली दो, category 1 and category 2, we are given are people that don't have a mobile banking application and may not necessarily have a mainstream banking account. So ये दो categories, ये दो segments in the first two income buckets will get crossed out, so you will not use them. इनको आप इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे. अब बच क्या गया आपके पास? अब आपके पास बाकी 1 2 3 7 categories हो गई, 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9. And then for these the model is very simple. You take the number of mobile banking users, which is here 3.7, you multiply it with this number, which is 51.537, and that gives you, and you divide it by this figure, ये जो 0.87849 की figure दी गई है, and I'll explain why you have to do this. So what you want to do is, once you do this, you would basically get a score. So for example, for the fourth bucket, UPL has 3.7 million users. The fourth bucket, which is people who are earning up to 735,000 rupees a year, which is a monthly income of 60,000 rupees, UPL has about 1 million of these customers. And then it has about 240,000 customers who are earning about, let's say, about 100,000 rupees a month. And then it has another 152,000 customers who are earning 1.9 million rupees a year, and then 61,000 customers, and then 8,000 customers, and then 2,000 customers, right? This is the default calculation for UBL using this simple, very basic, very bare bone model. अच्छा, अब ये जो 87.8 की एडजस्टमेंट है, इसकी क्या कहानी है? इसकी कहानी बहुत सिंपल है. आपके पास एक शेयर है ऑफ पॉपुलेशन दैट एड्स अप टू 100. अब उसमें से आपने 12% लोगों को, इन लोगों को आपने निकाल दिया. तो जो आपके पास रिमेनिंग प्रोपोर्शन है, वो रिमेनिंग प्रोपोर्शन इज नॉट द सेम एज 100%. दैट रिमेनिंग प्रोपोर्शन इज ओनली 87.8%. सो जो आप टैबुलेट करेंगे अपने नंबर्स या रिजल्ट्स कैलकुलेट करेंगे, यू हैव टू एडजस्ट दैट. उसकी एडजस्टमेंट का तरीका क्या है? उसकी एडजस्टमेंट भी बहुत सिंपल है. ये आपने 87.849 नीचे एस्टिमेट किया, व्हिच इज द सम फ्रॉम हियर टू हियर. तो आपने करना ये है कि जब आपने, when let's say you take 1.463 and you multiply this 1.463 by 3700, you'll simply divide that by 8.849 to adjust the overall score, right? That'll be your adjusted score. What I see is I've got two components. I've got an adjustment that happens here. So this adds up to 3.7 million, and I'm very happy with that. But then the second adjustment that I have to make is that if you go back to the application ratings, and this is data that has been shared above, there you go. ये जो आपकी app rating है, this app rating has been used to generate a category share adjustment. So this basically says that if you're 9 and above, and let's say HBL and UBL की application rating is 9 and above, then you will attract about 2.5 times the normal share for higher income brackets. And higher income brackets are defined as income brackets that are equal to or higher than 5. And again, this is also a design parameter, which basically means that in the exam itself, I can very easily change this and give you a different set of adjustments and say isko aap istemal karein for your calculation purposes. Okay, I've given this to you for this set of values that you can calibrate your calculations, because there was request for the fact. But जो आपके पास actual exam questions आएंगे, उसमें I'd say कि okay, update your model with these parameters, and I may give you, as I said earlier, I may give you a different income level, I may give you a different market share rating, I may give you a different segment share. I can change a couple of parameters here. आपका answer change जाएगा. So the idea is not that you will be doing calculations. Hopefully you will not be doing calculations in runtime. There are some questions where you may actually have to run some numbers, but 90% of your work should have already been done, and it should be done in a generalized fashion. अगर आप hard code करेंगे तो आप फंस जाएंगे. So for example, if I look at this calculation, ये है 5 and above, right? So 5 and above मेरा default share है वो 240,000, 2,40,000 है, लेकिन when I apply the 2.5 की adjustment 6 लाख पे जाता है. Similarly, मेरे पास वो customers who earn let's say 2 करोड़ रुपए साल का, वो customers मेरे पास सिर्फ 2,000 थे for UBL, but now the same number of customers is about 5,000. वो customers who earn about 7 million रुपए साल के, which is let's say about 650,000 रुपीज a month, वो मेरे पास 9,000 थे, वो बढ़ के 22,000 हो गए. Okay. So now what's happening is कि you have a different challenge once you apply this higher rating. ये जो 3.7 million number of users हैं आपके पास, जब आप इसके ऊपर ये 250% का बोनस लगाएंगे तो बढ़ जाएंगे. डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट कि आप इस बोनस को सिर्फ 5 पे लगा रहे हैं, लेकिन ये जो 3 और 4 की कैटेगरी जब आप इसको ऐड करेंगे इसके अंदर, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू लुक एट हियर, यू आर ऑलरेडी एट 2.236 million. Now in this 2.236 million, if I add this 2.162, how many number of users will you have? You will actually have 4.2 million. लेकिन जो UBL के number of customers हैं वो तो 3.7 million है. तो अब आपके पास एक बड़ा मसला आ गया कि you have an excess number of customers and you have to adjust it. So हमने अपनी मॉडलिंग के लिए किया है, what we said is कि ये जो आपके excess number of customers होंगे, जो डिफरेंस होगा, ये डिफरेंस कहाँ एडजस्ट करेंगे? या आप अपनी लोएस्ट इनकम ब्रैकेट में एडजस्ट करें, इधर एडजस्ट करें. So I will take the benefit of higher market share, higher customers in the higher category, and I will change that and I will replace that, take that hit and adjustment in my lowest income category. So जब I apply this change and adjustment, तो what you'll see is कि इन दोनों का difference है. इन दोनों का difference क्या है? 3.7 and 2.2 का 1.464. So rather than taking 2.16 million customers in my lowest category, I'll take 1.464 customers. And when I do this, then my set adds up to 3.7 million. So now you have to do a calculation for what is the share of UBL and HBL's numbers from with respect to, let's say, the SBP calculation. तो अब हमने किया ये कि ये जो हमने numbers निकाले ना यहाँ पे, अब for example पहले मैंने जो काम किया अब तक वो मैंने आपको UBL का दिखाया था, अब आई एम शोइंग यू HBL के numbers. तो HBL के केस के अंदर 4 मिलियन अकाउंट्स हैं. Maybe I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat at least one example again one more time in Excel ताकि आप उसको देख सकें. So अभी I'm just walking through the PowerPoint deck. Once I'm done with the deck, then I'll walk you through the Excel example step by step. Okay. So now what I've done is I'm now estimating the market share of revenues. So हमने एक assumption ली है, assumption में ये लिए कि 0.1%, ये जो figure है यहाँ पे 0.1% of the total spend. So the transactions that you do on the mobile banking application, उसका 0.1% is generally considered, let's say, an IBFT fee. So अगर मैं एक यूजर लूँ और उस यूजर का जो महीने का स्पेंड है वो स्पेंड इज 30,000 रुपीज, तो उस यूजर की फी कितनी जनरेट होगी? सो अगर ये मेरा स्पेंड है एक यूजर का, राइट, दिस इज वन यूजर, इसका मंथली स्पेंड इज 30,000, इसकी मंथली फी कितनी जनरेट होगी? 31. ये कैसे जनरेट होगी? दिस इज 0.1. 31 रुपए जब इसकी फीस जनरेट हुई है तो ये कितने यूजर्स है मेरे पास सब मिला जुला के? ये मेरे पास है 1.58 मिलियन यूजर्स. 1.58 मिलियन into 31 and that then into 12, क्योंकि हम ये तो मंथली है ना, तो ये हर महीने इस्तेमाल होगा, तो अगर हर महीने इस्तेमाल होगा तो उसको 12 से मल्टीप्लाई कर देंगे. So that will give me this number which is 581 million rupees. And this is the fees for what? This is the fees for this income bucket for the full year. As long as I follow the same sequence, I can essentially generate the estimated income or fee income generated per month by all buckets, and then when I multiply that by a million times these numbers times this figures, I get these numbers, right? So जब मैं इसको डॉलर में कन्वर्ट करता हूँ तो ये मुझसे कह रहा है कि जी HBL की जो फी है साल की टोटल जो वो मोबाइल बैंकिंग एप्लीकेशन से जनरेट करता है वो कितनी है? वो 13.62 million dollars है. And then what does this fee represent of the total share of the fees generated by State Bank of Pakistan in a given year? So that's the question that we're trying to answer. That's the bonus of our calculation. हाँ, एक और चीज which is the age distribution. तो जब आपने ये नंबर निकाल लिया है, once you have the adjusted figure, आपके पास एक टेबल है, उस टेबल के अंदर आपके पास एज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का प्रोपोर्शन डाला हुआ है बाय एज ब्रैकेट, उसको एज इज अप्लाई कर दें तो आपके पास ये नंबर आ जाएगा. अब ये नंबर जो आपके पास आएगा, ये नंबर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में सिर्फ कहाँ के लिए आएगा? ये आपके पास सिर्फ आएगा इन द 1 2 3 4 5 द टॉप 5 कैटेगरी. ये जो आखिर की दो कैटेगरीज हैं विच इज कैटेगरी 8 and 9, इसके बारे में हमारे पास डेटा मौजूद नहीं है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का, तो उसको हम इस्तेमाल नहीं करें. So this number, this 3.97 million is going to be different than your overall sum which is this 4 million के आसपास. तो अगर आपके पास सवाल आएगा एज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का, that सवाल is only going to deal with the first 5 categories. It won't deal with the last 2 categories. So इसका ख्याल रखिएगा अपने पास. Income categories हैं वो 9 हैं total. The first 2 don't have a mobile banking account. तो ये 2 कट जाती हैं. ठीक है, ये 2 इस्तेमाल नहीं होंगी. And with respect to age distribution, the last 2 we don't have data. So for these last 2 we don't have age distribution figures. So you can only calculate age distribution for these one, which is the middle 5. And अगर आप overall size देखें, so the overall volume of customers that are in the last 2 categories is actually quite less compared to the overall volume. So 4 million में से आपके पास 30,000 customers हैं that are in the last 2 categories. Bulk of the customers on the first 2 categories. So now what I'm going to do is next what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the calculations in Excel.